we are glad to bring Dr. Arthur Hansen to the stage. Art is Emeritus Professor of History, founding director of the Japanese American Project of the Oral History Program, and the Center for Oral and Public History. He's also a founding faculty member of the Asian American Studies program at Cal State Fullerton. In 2014, he received the Sue Kunitomi Embry Legacy Award from the Manzanar Committee, and is also an author of countless books and publications about Japanese American history, and most recently published Manzanar Mosaic, Essays and Oral Histories on America's World War II Japanese American Concentration Camp, just this year. So today marks 50 years since Art's first pilgrimage in 1973.
After experiencing increased difficulty in swallowing food for several months, I arranged in February 2023 for an endoscopy to discover the cause of the problem. It revealed that my swallowing disorder was the result of a large cancerous tumor in my esophagus. A follow-up CAT scan showed that the cancer had spread from the esophagus to my liver and lymph nodes. A subsequent appointment with an oncologist disclosed that my likely future scenario would be for me to live 1 year or possibly more at home, followed by consignment to hospice care until my death. However, the oncologist offered one ray of hope, which he described as a long shot, and that was immunotherapy, in which the drug Opdivo would be infused into my body for up to a year's time so that my immune system would be stimulated to destroy the cancer cells in my body and allow me to extend my life cancer-free. He also assured me that during the interval of my treatment, I could carry on with my customary arrays of activities, which for the most part consists of doing historical research and writing and promoting my publications, such as my newest book, Manzanar Mosaic. This explains why I'm here at the Manzanar pilgrimage today and tomorrow. If my long shot at being freed of cancer does not materialize, however, this weekend, sadly, will be my final farewell to Manzanar. Although it seems like only yesterday, it was a half-century ago that I first said hello to Manzanar. That was in 1972, when two of my history department faculty members at Cal State Fullerton accompanied our Nisei colleague, Kinji Yada, on his personal pilgrimage to the place where he, at age 13, and his Issei parents became unjustly imprisoned at Manzanar in 1942. On that occasion, I recall that virtually all of Kinji's commentary consisted of retelling fond recollections of the positive aspects of his enforced confinement, participating in sporting events like baseball and basketball, hanging out and smoking cigarettes with his buddies, listening to swing bands and learning to jitterbug, and being sometimes included in the upbeat activities of an older group of popular teenage guys called the Manzanites. I could not fully grasp the rationale for Kinji's buoyant take on his concentration camp experience until many years later, when in 2013, I read the memoir of Hank Umamoto, Kinji's closest Manzanar friend, a book entitled From Manzanar to Mount Whitney. Umamoto's take on his adolescent time at Manzanar was so rose-colored that he chose to decline his $20,000 redress payment. I then realized that if Kinji and Hank, as well, could look back positively on their Manzanar stretch because there were plenty of upsides to being a young person in camp, it was also the case that their very status shielded them from many of the slings and arrows that even their slightly older Nisei and Kibe siblings and neighbors had to confront. These included, most notably, the loyalty registration and military draft, since the response to one or the other could lead an inmate to being remanded to a high-security segregation center and or an alien internment camp, consigned to the perilous war fronts of Europe and Asia, or a federal prison, or plagued by the loss of U.S. citizenship and post-war life in war-devastated Japan. When I returned to the CS UF campus for my brief sojourn to Manzanar, I could not get the campsite out of my mind. Walking around the grounds of that mile-square camp and seeing the scant number of still standing buildings, the concrete footprints of 36 barrack apartments and other structures that housed and serviced 10,000 inmates and their governmental keepers, and the exposed artifactual remnants of an imprisoned population's daily lives, all framed by the spectacular beauty of snow-capped 14,379-foot Mount Williamson, the second highest mountain in the Sierra Nevada range. This stamped an indelible impression on my mind. This prompted me to take two steps. First, to devote my 2 courses at Cal State Fullerton in historical writing, to have the enrolled students undertake an original research paper on an aspect of the World War II exclusion and incarceration of Japanese Americans. To prepare them, I exposed them to 2 guest lecturers from Cal State Fullerton, the aforementioned Keiji Yada and the female dean, Dr. Hazel Jones, who had served as a high school English teacher at Manzanar. This led several students to focus their research papers on that camp's experience. The second step was for me, at the encouragement of one of my re-entry graduate students, Betty Mitson, to launch within the CSU Fullerton Oral History Program a Japanese American project, which was the first such institution in the United States. Within the next 2 years, 1973 and 1974, I became fully immersed in the Manzanar experience. In 1973, I coordinated a University of California Irvine-based lecture series designated as Japanese Internment during World War II, a socio-historical inquiry. It was also the first of its kind in the country. It included presentations by 2 former Manzanar inmates, Suku Tomi Embry and Togo Tanaka. When I announced to the large class of predominantly Japanese Americans enrolled in the lecture series that I planned to drive to the Owens Valley to the upcoming Manzanar pilgrimage and would provide transportation to that event, one Sansei woman took me up on my offer. This particular pilgrimage, the 5th one sponsored by the Manzanar Committee, was a landmark occasion. It drew a large throng of participants, was accorded lavish media coverage, and included contingents affiliated with the Manzanar Committee from all over the country. The Nikkei participants at the pilgrimage were asked to assemble themselves into groups designated by banners signifying the 10 Ori Location Authority camps. The Sansei woman who had accompanied me to the pilgrim duly joined a cluster of Nikkei identifying themselves with the Hill River camp. It was the last I saw of her until it was time to drive back to Southern California that evening. Her distancing herself from me was an action that I interpreted as her way of respecting the imaginary line drawn at the pilgrimage that separated the sacred pilgrims, the Nikkei, and the profane ones, Hakuji like me. Clearly her Manzanar moment inspired this born and bred Sansei from the Midwest to complete the circle of her emerging identity as an authenticated Japanese American. The climax of the 1973 Manzanar pilgrim occurred when a historical landmark plaque was cemented in place at the front of the Manzanar site by the California Department of Parks and Recreation in cooperation with the Manzanar Committee and the Japanese American Citizens League. Of course, everyone who knew the backstory to this plaque was aware that it came into existence almost exclusively through the relentless efforts of the Progressive Manzanar Committee, which had to fight stubborn opposition tooth and nail for every unadulterated word inscribed on the plaque. Its key section read, Manzanar, the first of 10 such concentration camps, was bound by barbed wire and guard towers confining 10,000 persons, the majority being American citizens. May the injustices and the humiliation suffered here as a result of hysteria, racism, and economic exploitation never emerge again. Sayonara to Shigata Ganai! After this pilgrim, I became obsessed by Manzanar. In 1974, Betty Mitson and I co-edited what was the earliest oral history book to pursue the World War II experience of people of Japanese ancestry. This volume, Voices Long Silent, an oral inquiry during the Japanese-American evacuation, was dominated by articles and interviews highlighting Manzanar and Manzanarians. This same year, I co-authored with two of my students, David Hacker and Ronald Larson, a couple of research studies impinging on the Manzanar situation. The first, with Hacker, resulted in a published reassessment of the bloody Manzanar uprising of December 6, 1942. The second, with Larson, yielded an unpublished appraisal of the pre-war Los Angeles Japanese-American communist newspaper, Doho, an organ that included several key staff members who would later play significant roles at Manzanar. Both of these treatises appear in my book, Manzanar Mosaic. In 1973 and 1974, I also joined up with 4 members of the Japanese-American project at Cal State Fullerton to conduct tape-recorded interviews with 3 Manzanarians, Suku and Tony Embry, Carl Yanetta, and Elaine Black-Yanetta. I also partnered with another project member, David Bertagnoli, to tape-recorded interviews with Owen Valley residents as to their wartime memories of Manzanar. These interviews constituted the core of a later publication in 1977, edited by project members Ronald Larson and Jesse Garrett, under the title of Camp and Community, Manzanar and the Owens Valley, for which I provided the foreword. Moreover, beginning in 1973-1974, I commenced the near-annual practice of taking of my class students on an intensive weekend trip to the Manzanar area, lodged in the nearby town of Lone Pine at a motel consisting of refurbished camp barracks. The students and I were treated to a whirlwind tour by a duo of wartime Manzanarians, typically Shiro and Mary Kajiyama Nomura, or Sue Funatomi Embry and Wilbur Sato of the Manzanar Committee, who you really heard today, died just yesterday. In the years spanning 1973 and 1978, I interviewed 7 other Manzanarians, one of whose tumultuous camp experiences are highlighted in the oral histories portion of Manzanar Mosaic, Harry Ueno, who I interviewed with Sue Funatomi in 1976. This interview was subsequently published as a book, Manzanar Martyr, co-edited in 1986, co-edited in 1986 by Embry, myself, and Betty Metzen. One other Manzanar-related activity I participated in during this interval was the collective creation of a Manzanar committee rooted critique of Director John Cordy's 1976 nationally televised and groundbreaking film, Farewell to Manzanar. Aside from attending most annual Manzanar pilgrimages between 1978 and 1983, in March of the latter year, I proclaimed farewell to Manzanar, leastwise temporarily, when at a Salt Lake City conference, Roger Daniels, then reigning Dean of Japanese American Historiography, tendered me this advice: you must get well beyond Manzanar in your research and writing, which I thereafter did by turning my attention to the other 9 WRA camps, as well as the isolation centers in Moab, Utah, and Luke, Arizona, plus a good share of the sites overseen by the Wartime Civil Control Administration and the Department of Justice. However, my strongest identity has remained with Manzanar, which is the Japanese-American camp where far and away I have spent the most time as a visitor, consultant, volunteer, and invited speaker. In truth, being at Manzanar, or even driving past the site on historic U.S. Route 395, unfailingly moves me intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Should my life be extended through my ongoing immunotherapy treatment, I long to be able to return to Manzanar for one final word farewell. If this opportunity fortuitously occurs, I would like it to feature a book talk on a document I developed in concert with Robert Brown. It centers on the diary he maintained in 1942 during his tenure as a public affairs agent and reports officer, and it covers the story of Manzanar from its origin story in March through the Manzanar riot revolt in December. A few years after Brown's death in 1976, his widow Charlotte Brown asked me if she could borrow the manuscript in order to better understand its contents. I foolishly sent her the only copy of it that I possessed. She later told me in 1980 that she had somehow lost it. Over the next 33 years, I periodically agonized over this opportunity. But then in 2013, Rose Masters, an interpretive ranger at Manzanar, told me that Robert Brown's daughter, Susan Phelps, had dropped into the Manzanar Visitors Center one day and agreed to be interviewed the next day by Rose. In turn, Rose provided me with contact information for Susan. Upon talking on the telephone with Susan at her New England family home, she informed me that her late stepmother, Charlotte, had bequeathed some material to her, and that one item seemed to be a very edited version of her father's 1942 Manzanar. Over the past 10 years, I've worked off and on, aided by Rose Masters, Jane Berry, a former interpreter ranger at Hansen, and Susan Phelps, to convert Robert Brown's 1942 Manzanar diary into a significant publication. Of course, whether or not I'm around to do this book in print remains an open question. Thank you so much for indulging my presentation.